Welcome back to another exciting episode of Resort Randomizer. If you guys are new here, this is the game where we come to the Disney Springs bus stop station, roll a random number generator, and hop on whatever bus it tells us to. We go spend the afternoon out at that resort, checking it out, feeling out the ambiance, and seeing if that resort is right for you. A couple of rules to our game though. Number one, it has to be random. No matter what number we roll, we have to jump on that bus, unless we've already been there before. At that point, we will re-roll, and by the end of the game, we've gone to every single resort. Rule number two, a couple of locations we won't be going to, which include Shades of Green, the private military resort, Golden Oak, the private residence, Galactic Star Cruiser, which is a private experience all on its own, and any third-party resorts on property, including the Swan and Dolphin, which are owned and operated by Marriott. Prior to today's episode, we've been to all of these resorts listed here. I'm gonna have a playlist in the description below and at the end of the video with all the other tours we've been on so you guys can check those out from there. So why don't you guys come along, let's go make some memories together. Looks like 29 is still our highest number we can roll. If we happen to get a resort that shares the bus as another one, we'll roll a smaller number, say 1, 2, or 3, whichever, and we'll go from there. 27, Pop Century. All right, guys, let's go. All right, we got Pop Century today, one of my favorite resorts on the entire property. It is a value resort. We've stayed here before a number of years ago and loved it. I love going to explore Pop Century. I love its larger than life pop culture stuff. And it has a Skyliner, which is one of the best transportations on all of Disney property. Alrighty, made it to Pop Century. Not a bad bus drive at all because we are not very far from Disney Springs. Because Pop Century is a value resort, many guests will stay here, so it's got to have a pretty large bus stop. So being named Pop Century, we're going to be exploring different pop culture icons and music and sayings and phrases from the 50s up until the 90s. Now from the bus stop, they do have this entrance into the gift shop and dining. We're going to go around to the main entrance and enter through there. Just outside the main lobby, we've got some fun giant numbers for all the decades we'll be exploring today. Everything from the 50s through the 90s. So bet you're wondering, it's called Pop Century. Why does it start at the 50s and ends at the 90s? They were supposed to build an expansion across the lake that's here for the classic years. So it was going to be from the 1900s to the 1940s, but that was never built, and more on that later. All right, welcome to Pop Century. I love the aesthetic of this place. Very cute, very kitschy. Now, being pop culture related, we're going to see a lot of different things from each decade that kind of encapsulate what was popular during that time. Yeah, you can see by the top here, we've got an entire timeline. So as we progress, we'll see just more advancement in technology and entertainment. So this is the 1950s. Got some old games and books and stuff that kids would play with. You've got things like bowling and like diners and like soda shops. Moving into the 60s, more things. Oh, I like that Disney monorail game. Of course, you've got your hippie era. And then traveling Route 66 for family vacations. 70s moves us into the disco era. Of course, Star Wars was released in the 70s. Disney World, of course, opened in 1971. Coming into the 80s, big emphasis on toys. This is when I feel like toys really started to get big with kids. Big musical scene, Elton John, Tina Turner, Michael Jackson, Sting, Madonna. And our last decade, the 90s, of course, Disney Renaissance, Disney Animation. See, I'm a 90s baby, so this very much speaks to me. Dreamcast, Furby, Power Rangers, Beanie Babies, that Pocahontas book. There's definitely a lot I didn't talk about. So if you guys come here, make sure you guys spend some time and actually look at basically a museum. It's really cool. Well, that's kind of it for your main check-in desk. It's pretty simple, straightforward. It's very large, as you can tell, to accommodate for a lot of guests. We're gonna keep exploring the inside of the resort with the shopping and dining and the arcade before we go out to the main area with like the pools and the hotel rooms. Everything Pop Shopping and Dining is our next stop. As the name implies, it's going to be not only your gift shop, but your quick service location, which is the only dining on property. Found our exclusive merch table, very loud and vibrant. I do really like it. Here's the ornament for the resort, which is the 1970s Mickey phone. We'll definitely see that again later on in our tour. Got some magnets, this fun 1960s inspired water bottle. These ears are really fun. You don't really see many ears for the value resort, so this is really nice. Kids tea to the max. Pop Century Resort. This adult tee here for Have a Nice Day. Definitely everything very 60s inspired, which makes sense. That is the largest area of this resort. And here's the pin for the resort, matches that kid shirt to the max. We'll definitely see that Goofy again later too. The first half of this gift shop is gonna have things like pins, magic bands, keychains. They've got a couple of food options over here, like some snacks, maybe some breakfast foods, coffees, crackers, bread, peanut butter and jelly. Even more snacks over here, your bagged candies and nuts and stuff, and just some basic home souvenirs you can buy. And on this side, we've got most of your clothing options, hats, t-shirts, spear jerseys, ears. There's some plush back in that far corner. And then tucked back over here is like their little medicine cabinet area. Every resort has one. They kind of exist, so if you by chance forgot to bring something, or maybe you ran out, maybe you just didn't think you needed it at all, they do have you covered here. Everything from Tylenol to baby food to Pepto-Bismol. You've got some shaving stuff, women's care, baby diapers. There's quite a bit here. And of course, for the 21 and up crowd, we've got like wines and spirits and liquors behind this lock case here. Just ask the nearest cast member, they can get it out for you. Well, I think that wraps up the shopping aspect of this resort. Pretty straightforward. A lot of things that maybe if your kid can't wait till you guys get to the parks, maybe you forgot to grab something, this resort should have it. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Gonna make our way into the dining area. Being a value resort, it is built to accommodate many, many guests, so lots of seating available. Now, food here is gonna be served food court style, so you've got different stations you can pick from. This one looks like it has a couple plant-based options, but I did see that it had things like chicken and salmon and just more of your like hot meals over here. Pizza and pasta window. Over here is gonna be more of your like theme park food, so burgers, sandwiches, chicken strips. This last one over here looks like it's gonna be your ice cream station along with some specialty coffees. Back here in this little nook, you've got some quick pickup things like bottled sodas, some pre-made salads, bottles of juice, cups of fruit, your dessert windows right here, and these lovely looking pastries. Some exclusive desserts that are gonna be here are gonna be this tie-dye cheesecake, which honestly just looks like a bowl full of Play-Doh. And then down here is the other one, which is the Pop Goes Bananas cupcake. I've never had that one. We've had the cheesecake before, but I would only assume that's going to be a banana flavored cupcake. Typically on these tours, we like to grab an exclusive snack, just kind of show you guys what's around here at the resort. So at the end, we'll probably grab one of those two, maybe both, who knows? And then refill stations for your resort mugs or just sodas in general, coffees, teas, condiments. So being a value resort, your options are kind of limited because this is the only dining location, but you are very close to a sister resort called Art of Animation, which also has an entire food court to itself. So you can always go over there and eat, which we'll show you guys more on that later. Coming back out here to the main lobby location, there's the check-in desk where we were at, and there's all the pop culture stuff. We're gonna swing over here towards the Fast Forward arcade, some restrooms, and then we'll head outside to check out the rest of the resort. So being a value resort, I'm assuming this probably gets a lot of use. It also should be fairly large. Oh yeah, it goes way far back. This is probably one of the biggest ones I think I've ever seen, if not the largest. All right guys, welcome to the 1960s. Coming right out to the pool, we have our recreation for the month of May. Every month is gonna be a little bit different, so make sure you guys check with your resort desk to see what events are happening. But there are gonna be some different activities, some paid, some free, things like trivia, and movies under the stars, some s'mores roasting. You've got some Mickey tie-dye things you can do. You can make a yo-yo apparently here, very cool. Also outside of the pool here is going to be the map of the property. We are right here, right outside Classic Hall, which is the check-in desk. So this is the 60s section. You've got the 50s, the 70s, and then the 80s and 90s share a section. Before we continue on and explore the 60s, I want us to backtrack in time, start at the 50s, and then work our way through this half of the century, and then we'll end at the 90s. I'll also show you guys some really cool trivia markers they have kind of sprinkled throughout each area, and just kind of some big eventful things that happened during those decades. Now the values are known for their larger than life decor, which includes these giant bowling pin staircases. Every area of resort's gonna have some like fun decorative thing around their staircase, and this one happens to be bowling themed. Each area is also gonna have these larger than life character statues, and being in the 1950s, this one is Tramp. On the other side is Miss Lady herself. Very cute. Here's a better view of our girl Lady. So each section is also going to have different icon things. So like transistor radios, records, and they're gonna have like sayings. So real hip, You're Grounded. Never heard of that one, actually. They've also got some dancers here. They kind of display like, I guess like a sock hop dance from the 1950s, just something that was popular during that time. 50 section is home to the bowling pin pool, of course, shaped like a bowling pin. There's gonna be 3 pools on property. This is one, there's one in the 60s where we just were, and then there's one in the 80s and 90s section. The one in the 80s and 90s in here should be your more quieter pools. They're definitely not as loud and rambunctious. They're not like the party pools. So if you're still wanting to swim and not deal with the hustle and bustle of the crowds of this resort, you can always come to one of these pools. Anybody can use them regardless of what section you're staying in. There's also a bit of recreation here, including a giant checker set and a ping pong table to use. Cleverly disguised as like a bowling shoe rental area is going to be bathrooms and I believe laundry. All the pools should have laundry. We're not going to go in there because I want to disturb any guests who are actively using it, but there are laundry facilities in here. And there's also going to be a giant jukebox here, one that I think would sit on like a diner table rather than like the big one that would be at like the bar or something like that. But yeah, wonder if there's any songs I can recognize in here. Okay, so maybe I am too young because I actually don't know any of these songs. Oops. And speaking of music, each area is going to play real music from that time period. If you guys were born in that era, or maybe you guys are just musically inclined, you'll definitely hear a lot of music you guys know. We're going to head out here to the edge of what is called Hourglass Lake because they have a lot of fun trivia from each year out here. And this walkway spans all the way along the whole entire outskirts of the property. Now we found the most perfect one for the 1950s. 1955 Disneyland opened in Anaheim, California. Perfectly appropriate for what we are doing today. And the word smog was apparently used for the first time to combine the combination of smoke and fog that hangs over US cities. These little trivia markers are actually wonderful if you guys just want to get out and kind of explore your resort a little bit, because like I said, they do go all the way down this path. It's a very, very long path. And with as nice of a day out as it is, this would be a perfect walk just to not only enjoy the weather, but get to learn some things about history. Bet you guys didn't realize you were coming on a history lesson today, did you? Well, I think that about wraps up the 50s section of the resort. So let's time travel ahead 10 years to the 60s. Coming into the 60s, our very fun stairwell is this giant yo-yo. Now the 60s is going to be kind of your main section of the resort. It's definitely your largest, your most loud and kind of out there area. Got some restrooms and laundry right here. Also flower power to the next level. Very, very 60s inspired, very hippie-esque. More recreation here, including another ping pong table. This right here is Pedal's Pool Bar. They've also got a 24-hour drink refill station right there. Never actually got a drink from here, but I've heard they've got some fun exclusives. I'll put the menus for all the dining locations in the description below. This right here is going to be the Hippy Dippy Pool. You heard that right. This is the Hippy Dippy Pool. It is going to be a flower-shaped pool. Obviously, being your main pool, this is going to be your loud one. This is where they're going to have events. I think he's actually even doing like trivia or something over there, that cast member. Yeah, definitely a lot louder than the 50s pool for sure. Not only are we rife with flower power, we've got some dancers here doing a dance I'm not familiar with, but we've got peace, love, and happiness above us. Lots of hippie related things, including this peace sign. And we've got like Peace Man and Can You Dig It over there. I think that one says groovy. And I really love our choice of Disney characters for this side because it's from the Jungle Book. You really don't see much of Jungle Book anymore, but it indeed came out in the 1960s. You've got Mowgli and Baloo. The 60s section also has a kiddie pool, so if your kids are too small to swim in the big one, they've also got an option. Our like pop culture icon of this one is gonna be a giant thing of Play-Doh. Like this is absolutely massive. And I feel silly because I was questioning what these little things were. I think maybe it was like a board game or something like that. This is what you use in your Play-Doh like pusher thing, and you make shapes. So you've got like all the different shapes you can make with it. Very cool. Coming past the kiddie pool, we're gonna come out here to the walking trail we were on for the 1950s trivia. We'll go find a little trivia tidbit to talk about, and then we'll talk about the Skyliner. In 1963, the largest civil rights demonstration to date, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. delivers his I Have a Dream speech. Very, very iconic, very important to American history. And we've got Kodak launches the Instamatic camera. So my favorite part of Pop Century Resort is going to be the Skyliner. This is the newest mode of transportation introduced here at the Walt Disney World Resort. And as you can tell, they are floating gondolas that whisk you away off to other areas of the property. This right here is the very end of one side of the station. So this service is not only Pop Century and Art of Animation, because there is a bridge that links the two right here, But this also goes on to Caribbean Beach, which then can transfer to Disney's Hollywood Studios, which is one theme park, and it can continue on to EPCOT, which is another theme park here. The other resorts on the way to EPCOT are going to be Riviera, and then at the very end, it also services Yacht, Beach, and Boardwalk. So the Skyliner definitely takes you to a lot of locations, and I think this is one of the biggest perks to staying here. Not only is Pop Century relatively inexpensive because it's a value resort, but you get access to one of the most efficient modes of transportation on property. Now granted, as you can tell, you are above the ground, especially here you are above water, so if you have a fear of heights or enclosed spaces, it may not be the most comfortable experience for you, but I think it's wonderful. I actually did an entire POV tour of all the Skyliner stations, all the resorts it visits, both of the theme parks that they service, and just what the views look like. I'll link that video below in the description and at the end of this video, so you guys can check that out from there. It's very quick, very efficient. I think from here all the way to EPCOT might be 20 minutes, maybe even less than that. Well, hello, Mr. Soft-Shelled Turtle. How are you? I mentioned before that this lake is called Hourglass Lake because it is indeed the shape of an hourglass. You've got both sides right here. This was at one point, I don't know if it still is, but it's called the Generation Gap Bridge. And the reason why is because they were supposed to build two sections to Pop Century. They're supposed to build the section that we currently have, which is the 50s through the 90s. And then they're supposed to also build the 1900s through the 1940s. And unfortunately, this other side never got completed. Due to the events of September 11, 2001, a lot of tourism was immediately halted. No one wanted to travel anywhere for obvious reasons. They were in the middle of building the other half of this resort at that time period and immediately just stopped. And it sat abandoned for a very, very long time, up until I believe the early 2010s when they started to repurpose the area to build another resort. We are now over here at Disney's Art of Animation Resort. Now we're not gonna explore today because that's gonna be an entirely different video, but this is, I consider, a sister resort to Pop Century, even though they don't have anything to do with each other. All right, friends, we're gonna turn back around, head back into Pop Century, and go check out the 70s section. Coming back up here to the platform by the main entrance back into the lobby, we're gonna walk this way and continue on down to 70s. Our fun stairwells for the 1970s section are going to be 8-track tapes, so kind of the precursor to cassettes. But before we enter the 70s, we've got this little recreational area over here. This right here is going to be the fire pit. This is what they use for the marshmallow roasting and s'mores creation. It is going to be a paid activity, so just check in with your desk, see if you can purchase a kit. Surfer Goofy here. He's very cool. This is the same one that is on the t-shirt and the pin on the inside. We've got a fun car here. I'm not a car guy, but this is a pretty nice looking car, and they've done a decent job of keeping it shiny. Some of our fun decor here, we've got a mood ring, and we've got some platform shoes through the trees here. Definitely gonna be very disco inspired here. I think the words of there say, get down, get down, get down. This is also the only section that's not going to have a pool. So instead they have this giant foosball table. I really like the larger than life aspect of the values. A lot of people don't. They think that they're tacky, which, I mean, in a sense they are right, but I think that they're really charming. I think this is fun. And there's the Mickey phone, which was the ornament for this resort. Very, very cool. Not a lot of popular movies for the 70s for Disney, so I'm glad they found a piece of actual pop culture to go with that. And over here they've got a big wheel, which I don't even know if they still make these. I know they made these well into the 80s and 90s. I wonder how big a kid would have to be to actively ride this. Like, I'm sure the math is out there somewhere, but I'm pretty sure you'd have to be at least maybe 200 feet tall. Maybe that's too much, I don't know. Was Have a Nice Day not used until the 70s? I feel like that's a pretty normal statement to say. This one over here also just says polyester. And a very unique piece of recreation for this resort. You can actually play Twister here. Well, I was gonna demonstrate a game of Twister for you guys, but that ground is so hot. Please be very careful when playing that and don't burn your hand like I did. So the 70s section may not be home to a swimming pool, but they do have a little playground tucked back in here in this wonderfully shaded area. This is actually really nice and relaxing. There's not a whole lot of people back here. And if you guys want to enjoy being outside and not in the blistering Florida sun, this may be a good option for you. Because we did the 1955 one for Disneyland, we had to come over here and do 1971 for Walt Disney World. So just a few years ago, it was the 50th anniversary. And then Intel, it produced the first microprocessor chip. Very cool. Coming into our final section for the 80s and 90s, they did combine the two. We've got Some giant Rubik's Cubes here for, I would assume, the 80s side of the resort. And then you've got Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head here. They're getting a little facelift. Very nice. So our first section here is going to be dedicated to the 1980s. Love the use of the Pac-Man ghosts and the little Pac-Man maze there along the side of the building. Preppy and psych and totally awesome. And they got some break dancers here too. And one of my favorite of the figures here, my boy Roger Rabbit. It's wild to think just how popular Roger Rabbit used to be and how he's almost not really anywhere at the Disney resorts anymore. Like, he was at one point just as big as Mickey and Friends. They really, really promoted him. And our other pop culture icon is going to be the Walkman. So predates CD players, so you put a cassette in there and you walk around and listen to your music. The 80s section does quickly turn into the 90s section, which includes the computer pool here. Giant keyboard, stretches all the way down towards Roger. And this is a very quiet pool, at least compared to the other two. I think even quieter than the bowling pin pool. Now, the pool itself is not shaped like a computer, but we do have an old laptop and some floppy disks over here in the back corner. So the computer pool leads us back here to this, like I said, very old laptop, very chunky gray laptop, which has some great little ancient Easter eggs on there. So you've got icons for Magic Kingdom, EPCOT, Disney's Animal Kingdom, and at the time, Disney's MGM Studios. And I think a good hidden Mickey for today is not gonna be this backdrop here, but it's gonna be this little key right here on the keyboard. You kinda gotta be at an angle to see it, but there it is. There's your hidden Mickey of the day. Our restroom and laundry combination here is gonna be kinda like a sideways computer tower, obviously very antiquated by today's standards because it has a floppy disk drive on it. The 90s section is also home to CDs and rollerblades. Extreme sports became a thing in the 90s. Keeping it real, hip hop, surf the net, whatever. Now, coming to the edge of the 90s section, we have a parking lot here, but if you can see through the trees, that is the bus stop where we were dropped off. So this resort really isn't that big, which I think is a huge plus of being here. So if you're over here in the 90s, yeah, you may feel far from the actual like lobby and everything, but it's a very quick walk over. Our stairwell for the 90s section is going to be this old cell phone with the little pull-up top antenna. And that phone number, I think, used to be the phone number you would call to book your Disney vacations. Let's give it a call and see if it still works.
You have reached the Walt Disney World Parks and Resorts.
It still works. That is very cool. Our factoid for the 1980s, 1989, not only did The Little Mermaid release in theaters, which kicked off the Disney Renaissance, but Disney MGM Studios, now known as Disney's Hollywood Studios, opened here at the Disney World Resort. For the 90s, we're going to give you guys a little bit of a double feature since that's a decade that Matt and I were born. I was born here in 1990, which the Space Shuttle Discovery is launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida, carrying the Hubble Space Telescope. And here's Matt's. He was born in 1995. The Dow Jones Index of 30 major industrial stocks tops the 5,000 mark for the first time in history. But more importantly, the blue M&M finally joined. Can't have it without blue. So we reached the very end with 1999 here. Now this path does continue all the way down to the Art of Animation Resort. Like, we're at the very tip of Hourglass Lake. There's the car section of Art of Animation, so that pathway does connect over here. I would assume on the other side of the 1950s connects to the Little Mermaid section, which is the back end of the Art of Animation Resort. I'm not entirely sure, but I would assume it just connects one big circle for things like runners to actually take advantage of both resorts. Well, friends, I think this wraps up the main portion of exploring Pop Century Resort. I say we go head back inside of everything pop shopping and dining and go get that exclusive snack. So earlier I showed you guys both of those exclusive treats and I had to get both. Now, I'm not even the biggest cheesecake fan, but I did want to pick up the tie-dye cheesecake. I think it's just a normal flavored cheesecake, but it does have this red velvet crust on the bottom. And then I got the Pop Goes Bananas cupcake, which I've not had before. This is going to be a yellow cupcake filled with caramelized banana and a pastry cream topped with caramel latte buttercream. That is a very large scoop. That's a giant bite. I didn't mean to grab one that big. I think it's okay. I normally think cheesecake tastes like very sour to me. I don't think this one really has that sour taste to it. I definitely wouldn't pick this as my normal dessert, but being an exclusive, I wanted to try it for you guys. Aesthetic-wise, I do think that the Pop Goes Banana cupcake is a lot more pleasing to look at. Ooh, that is very filled. Last few cupcakes I've had on these tours have not been the most filled, but that's quite a bit in there. Let's give it a try. That's some good banana. It does taste like artificial banana, so you do have to like that. I think they said that the topping was like a caramel latte buttercream. It doesn't look like it, We're gonna try it. Oh, that's real nice. I really like that. All right, we're gonna grab a little taste of everything here. A little bit of the frosting, a little bit of the cake, a little bit of the filling. That's real good. That works real well. It kind of has a slight bubblegum taste to it. I know it's not bubblegum flavored. The cheesecake is definitely the more iconic of the desserts for this resort. If you want something that tastes better and looks better, I say go with the cupcake. All right, let's talk pros and cons of Pop Century Resort. First of all, the pros. I feel like I'm going to this very biased because I absolutely adore this resort. This is one of my favorite resorts on property. I love walking around. I love exploring it. I love the theme. I just think it's a ton of fun. I think one of the biggest pros though is the price point. This isn't as cheap as the All-Stars, but it's not as expensive as Art of Animation. I think it's a good sweet spot. But the absolute biggest pro to me is the transportation. The Skyliner is one of the greatest things ever introduced to the Walt Disney World Resort. It takes you to multiple different resorts. It takes you to 2 of the theme parks. It's very quick and efficient. I cannot praise it enough. Again, if you have a fear of heights or enclosed spaces, might not be the best thing for you, but it's absolutely worth getting on. Like I said earlier, I think the theme is a lot of fun. I like that we can go from the 50s to the 90s and explore pop culture. And you can also learn some pretty cool factoids by walking on this trail and seeing a different piece of pop culture history, everything from 1950 to 1999. I feel like this resort is also really family oriented. Not only are there 3 different pools you can go to, but there seems to be a lot of recreation that you and your family can take part in. Now let's talk some cons. Given the price point of this resort, I'm gonna say this is probably going to attract some larger crowds. Maybe not as many as the All-Stars, but you are going to have maybe some louder crowds, more family-oriented things, because this is such a lower price point compared to your moderates and your deluxes. And there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe if you're wanting a bit more of a quieter experience, this might not be a great resort for you. The values don't speak to everybody. Some people really think these are tacky and really don't like the way they look. Personally, I'm a fan, especially with the way that Pop Century does it. Your dining is also a little limited. Other than everything pop shopping and dining, that's it. But with that being said, you do have immediate access to the Skyliner, which can take you to 5 other resorts, and your sister resorts with Art of Animation, which is, you guys saw earlier, just a very quick walk over there. And something I never really thought of until just now, but this resort and its theme may be lost on some people. Being born in the 90s, I had access to information and pop culture stuff through my parents, and kids today, I don't feel like we'll really connect with a lot of that. I don't know if it's a generational thing, but I feel like as we get further into the century that we're in right now, those younger kids are not going to know anything about the 50s, 60s, or 70s. I think the biggest question is, would I stay here? And of course I would. Again, I absolutely adore Pop Century Resort. I think it is so fun. I love the Skyliner. I literally cannot stop praising how wonderful this resort is, not only from a price standpoint, but from accessibility to the rest of Walt Disney World. Let me know in the comments, have you guys stayed here? Would you guys stay here? Thank you guys so much for coming along. Hope you guys had a wonderful time. And as always, thanks for making memories with us. We'll see you next time.